Presiding Officer, this SNP government wants to impose a named person on every child in Scotland. They want to do it over the heads of parents, against the wishes of the majority of this country, and against the concerns of many, including the police, who believe it will take resource away from the most vulnerable families who need it most. The First Minister now claims that the scheme, due to start in August, is somehow not mandatory or not compulsory, and that parents can choose not to have anything to do with it. Can I ask her to make it absolutely clear today, are parents who don't agree with this scheme able to stop their child from having a named person and withdraw their child from all named person provisions?
First Minister. Well, as I have said, and I'll say again today, the named person scheme is an entitlement. I think it is a good and sensible entitlement. It is not an obligation. It helps children and families get the support they need from services when they need it. It does not in any way, shape or form replace or change the role of the parent or carer or undermine families. The fact of the matter is, and this is the fact that I think all of us should seek to remember, Presiding Officer, it is not possible, however hard we might try, to predict in advance which children might become vulnerable. The named person service is intended to ensure or to help ensure that we don't have children falling through the net. It's not a state guardian. The legislation builds on the role of teachers and health visitors, the role they've long held in relation to children, and it's not a new approach. It's already operating across much of Scotland. So the new legislation makes good standard practice across our country. I think when it comes to protecting our children, we should be prepared to make sure that the right support services are in place and they are available when and if they are needed for every child.
Davidson. Well, that was anything but clear. Presiding Officer, can I remind the Chamber that the Scottish Conservatives laid specific amendments to the bill allowing parents to opt out of the named person scheme, and those amendments were voted down by her party and shouted down by her minister, who said such state guardians were to be a universal service. Every child from birth to 18 with a named person attached. A named person with access to private and sensitive information, all recorded in a database and able to be accessed without the consent or even the knowledge of the parents in some cases. Presiding Officer, named person legislation is so sweeping and now so unpopular that it's no wonder that the First Minister is trying to spin her way out of it. But isn't it dishonest to suggest that a parent choosing not to engage with a named person is the same thing as being able to stop their child from having one imposed in the first place?
First Minister. The fact of the matter is that the children and parents are not legally obliged to use the named person service or take up any of the advice or help that is offered to them. But it will be available to them if they need it at any point in the future, because as families around this country will understand, families that today are coping very well and for whom there are no issues do not know what the future holds. None of us know which children may fall into a position where they are vulnerable or at risk. That is why the availability of the named person service is right to be on a universal basis. But let me repeat again today, parents are not legally obliged to use it because it is an entitlement, not an obligation. I think that's sensible, making sure it's there for everybody when they do need it, if they do need it, but not obliging anybody to use it if they feel they don't need it. That strikes me as a sensible way to ensure the protection of our children. And the protection of our children, Presiding Officer, surely should be the one thing that unites all of us across this chamber.